normally have to do with percentage of the economy. Usually it's dominated by tourism, 80 odd. I was really interested with Beryl, what percentage agriculture was now at, because in the past agriculture has been shrinking, and I'm not sure whether agriculture is still on the map. So once I'm able to read that pie chart, I'll share that with you next week. They predict that we're going to have growth better than the previous year. And, the debt ratio, although above the 60/40, is on target, to get back to where it should be. It was off target because of Beryl and the borrowings, etc., and what happened to Carriacou, Petit Martinique. So, it's looking as though we've gone over the rough and stabilizing. Now, there was some big news last week. Many of you would have seen, the hotel. Not the hotel. Well, it looked like a hotel. The hospital that that's been proposed, and was like a 3D, and it looked really positive, but it worried me because I was thinking, when is this hospital going to be built? It's going to be built in 15 years. How are we going to pay for the services in the hospital? We don't have a national insurance scheme that's up and operating. How are we going to deal with, coming from St. Andrews to go to Tongue for medical services? The costs are going to be great in terms of those things. So all these things, I was having a conversation about this morning, and I heard some of the people who talk on these things, and they were saying that it's a Ponzi scheme that's going to be rolled out, and there are the people who are going to benefit, and the government is going to be left with the bill. So all of that is wrong, but the 3D image is impressive. It's supposed to be on an 80-acre of land, like a new tongue itself. So that is wrong. I encourage people to, find out information, because we tend to like to deal with things on the surface, discuss, do your analysis, etc. Now, coming back to livestock making sense.
While all this thing is going on, the farmers have to mind their business. Those who are interested in hospital, mind their business. The farmers have to mind their business.
Well, the
question is, does livestock make economic sense?
Yeah, but the hospital is linked to the farmers. So especially livestock, and cash crops are linked to the hospital. If you're going to have 20, 30,000 people there working, whatever, they have to eat. So we have to have, a connection, a road into this hospital, etc. So to me, livestock is what they call a low-hanging fruit. And those of you who are not familiar with this term, all it means is like, when you pass in and you could reach the mango, the branch low, it's just easy to pick. So that's what they mean when they say low-hanging fruit. And I think that livestock is a low-hanging fruit for us, because we have a big demand in terms of beef and steak in the hotel industry. We will have that in other industries. We're talking about the hospital. The other thing that comes to mind, what's going to happen to our old hospital if we build a new hospital? Anyway, forget that. But there is certainly the link between farmers and hospitals, etc. And I really believe that we have like the finest meats in the world. Some people have said that our cattle the meat tend to be a little bit harder. And I've spoken to the vet about that, and he was saying it's the way that it's raised is nothing to do with the sun on the back of the cow, etc. And the age in which we kill it, they say we let the cattle get too old before we kill it. So I think there's real benefits, but to capitalize on the benefit, we have to create that infrastructure. And I'm going to stick to cattle at the moment because normally I stick to poultry when I'm giving these examples. I really believe if we could get the irrigation right, we could get the fencing right, and I'm talking not just fences that have barbed wire on it, but more smart fences. If we can also have the camera system set up where we could have these farms divided, I don't know, maybe in 4 quarters, so that you have the rotation of the cattle, but the cattle must have access to water all the time. And it must have access to shade as well. The poor cattle, I just see them sometimes on the airport and I think, oh gosh, not a rest for them in the day with this hot sun. But if we can do it properly and humanely, and we have the infrastructure set up, we have a model. We always talk about a model on this program. And Mr. P always say that the government state should have the models where we could go and look and whatever. But my view is slightly different. We know government ain't going to do no damn model. So I think we have to do model ourselves. Create our own model and wherever best practice, make plenty of money, and that is going to be the incentive for other farmers to get involved in the industry. Because one of the things I talk about all the time, we can't be doing this same thing over and over for 50 odd years that doesn't work and say we're going to go and do it again tomorrow. We must understand what we're doing, and we must understand whether it's effective or not effective. So clearly what we've been doing for 51 years hasn't been effective. And when I say effective, hear me out right. There are people who make a little money here and there from the livestock and and so it's not like I'm condemning or whatever. But what I'm saying is that if the potential in the industry is for $1 million and we're making maybe $500, it don't make sense. We have to work towards that $1 million. And it's not just about a wish and hoping that, livestock will make sense. I am convinced livestock will make sense. I am convinced that if we had people with 200-300 goat, they would be rich people. We don't have goat in the market. When you go to the market to buy a piece of meat, within a day and a half, the market is empty of meat. So I really think there is a homegrown market that can be regulated, that can be developed to make a good living and a few millionaires from the livestock industry. And I'm just talking cattle. I haven't gone into pigs yet. I haven't gone into goat yet. All of these, you don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do cattle and then pigs and then this and rabbit. You could specialize, say you have 50, 60 cattle or 100. I don't know how much land you will need per cattle. And you can really make a good living from it. Where I farm, I recently developed a planting field, but my neighbor lower down, he has over 100 goats, and he's smiling at me and he's saying, Josh, we're going to keep it keep it quiet. We're going to keep breeding. We're going to keep developing. But he gave me a figure. I can't quite remember. He said, if each goat is worth X amount, and I have 100, you see how much money I have?
You see, and that is what we have to be very careful. In this day and age, we have to tax our intelligentsia. If you're going to open your mouth, speak with clarity. The farmers must be sold whether or not livestock farming makes sense. There are some challenges that a livestock farmer would face. And the technical people in the Ministry of Agriculture, our intelligentsia, must be brutally clear. For instance, many years ago, the ministry decided that cattle perhaps is not an area we should put concentration on. Yes, you assist the people who have cattle. You give them technical assistance. You provide help for them. But the emphasis should be on small ruminant. If you're going to free-range cattle, then go and buy from Guyana. Guyana have land to free-range. We do not have land in Grenada for free-ranging cattle. Many years ago, the estates had cattle to provide them with manure. The workers on the estate had to rear the animal zero grazing principally. So they cut the grass and feed the animals.
So they call it pole.
Grass fed. Pole. They put the animal on a pole. Some fellas say, how me cow on a pole? And so then when they go home, the cow go, and next man take the cow and go. You know. So they pole the animal. That is what you call zero grazing. Now, over the years, more and more land is fragmented in Grenada. The estates are practically no more. So the ministry sat down and determined, or took a position then. Ministry position chief with government and permanent secretaries. There is no permanent position. That the emphasis should be on small ruminant. Now we must know clearly. An individual want to get involved into small ruminant.
When you say small ruminant, just tell us what that is.
Sheep and goat and rabbit.
Sheep, goat, and
Yeah,
what?
you could add rabbit to that.
Yeah.
Small. Now you must know exactly how many goats do I have to rear to make an income of $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Why do I use $3,000? Because the government statistician says that if you're making under $3,000, you're poor, you're vulnerable, you need help.
Yeah.
So they're not charging you personal income tax. And I don't care where you're working. Whether it's Hobbards, Hoggins, government, once your income is under $3,000 a month, you poor. A lot of Grenadians don't believe that.
Yeah, somebody, a politician was saying to me this morning that only 27% of the population pay tax.
Well, yes, if you don't make enough money, you don't pay tax.
You know.
You don't pay tax. If your income is $3,000 or less, you poor. And this thing, a lot of Grenadians don't know that they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
I see vulnerable people calling vulnerable people vulnerable. And they kick in on them. So we must able to say to a farmer, if you are going into goats, you need to rear 20 females to come up with an income of about $3,000 a month. And it's likely that you will break even after 3 years.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start, you wouldn't get money. It's not weed you rain. It's not coke. It's animals.
Yeah.
Animals take a time to grow, to mature, to multiply. So that must be clear in the mind of the individual. I think one of the problems you have in Grenada is lack of clarity. We are not surgical. We are not to the point. And you must come back to the government because it's the Ministry of Agriculture. Every time you speak agriculture, you must speak about policies. Because the policy of the government could help dictate, facilitate, or serve as a catalyst for economic growth.
Yeah.
Some people go into livestock, and when you watch them, you're sorry for them. One gentleman, a good friend of mine, he tell me he want to rear pigs. I watch him good. I say, is your wife interested in pig? He tell me no. His wife want to see pig. I say, don't go in pig. The only thing that could happen to your wife is going to leave you. Don't go in pigs. He watched me and he laughed and he went in pigs. Now, if you're a serious farmer in pig, you're going to smell pig. You know, if a F, you're going to smell pig. And if your wife is not interested in pigs, she may not like to smell the pig near her. And problems start. And particularly the lifestyle you have to prepare to give it the best shot you have. And you have to know how much pigs you would rear to break even at what time. And that information should be, you're supposed to be able to walk to the Ministry of Agriculture and say, I want to enter into rabbits. How much rabbits do I have to keep to bring in an income of $3,000 per month? And at what year, how much months or how much years I'm expected to break even? It's a general rule because that is what these bright people do best. They're good on paper. But where livestock is, they even no good on paper.
Yeah, I think that's very important. The business people do that all the time. I worked on the same kind of methodology in terms of poultry, and what I had recommended was that people who want to do commercial poultry do a minimum of 3,000 poultry a cycle. A cycle usually for poultry is about 6 or 7 weeks, let's say 2 months. And generally, if everything goes okay, you do a turnover of about 60,000 in terms of that. Then you have to take out your feed, your labor, your water, and all the rest of it. So we're aiming at usually 20% in terms of profit for the farmer. So you're looking at about 12,000 after 2 months, really. So that's about 6,000 a month.
We have some statements being made in this country is made to confuse people. You hear them all the time. You hear they say young people don't interest in agriculture. That is not true. We don't have enough young people in agriculture. That is not true too. We have too much farmers in Grenada. The problem is the farmers don't good. We don't have good farmers. We have too much farmers. 80% of Grenadians are directly or indirectly involved in agriculture. Any country in the world where you have all these people directly or indirectly involved in agriculture are poor countries. So we have to zero in. And that is where our scientific minds, who are our scientific minds? Obviously the people in the agriculture, the University of the West Indies, the agricultural colleges, the czars in agriculture. They speak in English more than the British. They're supposed to able to be more direct and pointed. If you want to go in livestock, small ruminant, what is your intention? Milk? Don't go in that. But you watch a man go, you say, do you have funding to set up XX? If you want to do meat, these are the type of breeds that is best. You are dealing with grass-fed animals.
Yeah.
So these are the type of breeds that are best.
Yeah, and grass-fed animals has a premium price on them.
In Grenada, we buy meat by chop up. Don't care whether it's premium or unpremium.
Yeah, but we have to do the transition to the point where we are the suppliers of the premium meat to the hotels. Otherwise, we're wasting our time.
The first thing the farmer have to find out, does it make economic sense? Would it better if you go into livestock and you are investing money, at what stage you are expected to break even? That is why the financial institutions would not lend you money to go into small rooming and livestock. They're afraid that. The financial institution don't want to lend you money to go in beekeeping. They will lend you $80,000 to buy a car.
Yeah.
Because that vehicle is insured. And they don't want you to pay them back, They want, after 3-4 years, they want to take back the car from you because they get enough money and they could salvage. 60% of first-time investors fail within 5 years. Could you imagine you have a small country?
Yeah.
And you have first-time investors. And if 60% of them are failing within the first 5 years, something is definitely wrong with our institutions.
No, yeah.
The banks, the credit unions.
Mr. Pierre, why do you think they're failing?
Because as if the institution want them to fail. The credit unions and the banks, they don't want them succeed. They want them fail.
Is that an opinion, or you have something to back that up?
Well, when I speak, I dare you. I challenge them to take me on. First of all, they could deal with the statistics, because I am no statistician. So when I present statistics, I know it could be easily challenged by these eyes, but they're not challenging. Now, if you have an institution in a country, you have expert in it. So they're supposed to know why these people are failing.
You make a good point. They have experts in this institution, but they don't. They don't have expert in the institution in terms of
Well, they have people playing them as expert.
Yeah, what they do when they have like loans of maybe 2 to 3 million, they'll call around different people in the ministry and say, "What's your opinion?" But the people in the ministry are not trained in risk management. They're not trained in terms of return on investment. They just give an opinion based on the profession, and the profession might be a veterinary scientist or a production kind of person. It's nothing to do with the answer that they want.
All these small ventures don't have to fail. And if you have first-time investors, small first-time investors, and you know for a fact that 60% of them are failing in the first 5 years, and your institution, a local institution, an institution in the Caribbean that claim you want to develop your country, then you have to be bad-minded and wretched. They have the most amount of masters, PhD. I don't think you could manage one of these institutions now easy without having a bachelor's degree or a master's degree.
And I was thinking about that, Mr. Pierre. And I was thinking, Eric Gary, the most uneducated prime minister we've had on this island. Uncertificated. Thank you for
right
that.
All
right. Thank you for that. And I was thinking, just at the top of my mind, look at all the things that he achieved. Maybe we should have a prerequisite being a prime minister being uncertificated. That might the prerequisite.
I think what has happened is that when an individual presents his certificate, it seems as though we take a paralysis and we're afraid to ask questions.
Okay.
This individual may be well schooled, but beating your wife home. If you have a man with a double master's, so you can beat your wife. Can't beat your wife, you have a double master's. And by that time, you would train in humanity, psychology, sociology, and sometimes your wife only has a birth certificate.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So that means you're not wise. If you are a manager in a bank, you want to have an idea of that person's life too.
Yeah.
If your life is like a ragtag, they're just certificated. And that is a challenge we're having.
Yeah.
So let us suppose you have the GDB Bank and others now and government claiming they're helping people. Some of these people, they're more burying them in debt. When somebody go to you, they say, we want to have a livestock project. We want to grow in sheep. We have 5 acres of land. You must be able to say to the individuals, the amount of animals you have is not enough.
Yeah.
For you to be economically strong, and every time I speak about economic success, I use the government-owned statistics. You must be able to make $3,000 a month per month.
Yeah.
Per month.
Yeah.
That is $36,000 a year.
Yeah.
Now, for you to be economically successful, in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you may not be able to be making that. But that institution knows that. Now, so you could tell the person from day one, you're starting on the wrong foot. You want animals for meat, you're going sane and good. You're not milk you want. You know, so from day one, you see people doing things, and when you watch them, you want to cry. Man say he want to go in pig, he spend $90,000 to build a pen. One pig sick, he call the vet. The vet don't want to go back by him. Because you watch this poor man spend $90,000 to build pig pen. You don't have money for pig food.
You know, I think this conversation is very, very important, because if you don't have the prerequisite information and knowledge, you're setting yourself up. So now I'm going to go back to poultry, because I did a lot of the documentation and research in poultry. So, for example, those of you who's interested in poultry, you would know already that the standard kind of area for one of the broilers is 1 square foot per broiler. So you work it out quite easily in terms of how much broiler you want, and you know, in terms of the feed cost, over 6 weeks what it will cost you. So these are things that, you know, you can actually pull down from Google in terms of rearing chicken. I haven't really looked into pigs and cattle, etc., because that has not been an area I've worked on. But knowing the basic is critical in terms of protecting your investment.
I strongly believe that we must not trick our people. I consider it a crime, when you find people are highly certificated. They come from university, and we have a lot, and I believe in education. They have their master's degree, they have their bachelor's degree. They're in a position. They are in the development bank. And if you're providing a loan for a man in the bank, it's not polytest you're making. If you're making polytest, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So an individual come inside there with a livestock project. After you listen to the livestock project, it is easy to find apprenticeship. You realize this man is a new man, and he's going in livestock for the first time. So you could simply say to him, get me 3 persons you believe is successful in livestock in your community. So you could use as an apprentice. You could even provide money for apprenticeship. So that individual will have to visit 2 or 3 of the farmers he named as successful. So he could get some hands-on learning experience.
Yeah,
but then the ministry or the University of the Western East or the intellectual colleges that we have would already have modules and templates that if you want to make money in sheep, you must run 12 years minimum.
Yeah, and those models should be around for
You should avoid inbreeding. You're not no breeder. Avoid inbreeding. Where you feed material is coming from. What we're doing is setting up we own people to fail. And the credit unions and the banks.
Yeah.
And you know, it even saddens my heart when I see the credit union jumping up and do just as the bank.
Oh.
They're failing with people.
Yeah, Mr. Pierre, let me ask you, in conversation, how do you prevent inbreeding, and what is inbreeding?
Well, generally, we have a word saying, the man had some nice fall, but he get cockaras. Because he never used to kill the cocks. So the cock running left, right, and center. And then gradually the breed deteriorate. That is when family too close. In human being, they call it incest.
Yeah.
In rabbits, you see it very, very quickly. Even rabbits. If the Ministry of Agriculture or any agency have a project and say they're giving you a pair rabbit, these people don't good. They're setting you up to fail. Sometimes they give you a pair rabbit from the same breeder. When the vet come and he watch the face of the rabbit alone, and he realize the amount of money you spend on rabbit, he may not able to tell you to slaughter all the rabbit and go, because you're wasting time and money. So all he will do, try to avoid you. Now we have to stop set up our people to fail. The government is doing it. The financial institutions are doing it. And our people bury your head in the sand. Nothing is wrong. You could make money from agriculture. If you have a sheep, you give, your son might have the sheep for him to get something to do. So you don't care whether the sheep dead or you know dead or not.
Yeah.
You know, you give him the sheep. That's a different story.
Yeah.
If you're going in it for economic purpose and you intend to invest money in it, even if it is money you win in the lotto,
Yeah.
even if it is money from your family or the financial institutions, you're supposed to get information from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Yeah.
How much
The template.
rabbit do I have to rear to make a profit of about $3,000 a month?
Yeah, a small booklet with all the information.
Now, if you're doing it because you want the person who going farming to be a serious farmer,
and succeed.
it's not a hobby. Government could encourage hobbies, and they could help hobbies. Because the hobbies might have a big ram there. You provide assistance, you encourage him. You say you like ram, so have good breed of ram.
Yeah.
And you could provide service for the communities. Some people like ram goat. I don't know if they want to feel they will get hot as a ram goat. They like ram goat.
Well, from listening to you, it sounds as though what you're saying is that we are operating as ostrich.
We bury our head in this.
Our head is in the sand and our thinking part is exposed.
And no help seems to be coming.
You know,
When a man claims he is an expert, one have to look at him and see if that export could bring result. If you go to a mechanic, your vehicle doesn't work. Yeah, I say, well, if chief change the engine,
yeah,
I fix the engine.
yeah,
Or it doesn't make sense working at engine by engine. So when the agricultural export come, answers must be provided. If an individual could rear sheep and rear and have animals, fence on in place, because keeping the sheep will help to control weeds.
yeah,
But you're well aware
yeah.
that some crops you cannot have because the sheep going to use it for foraging
Yeah.
material.
Mr. Pierre, you think we could give the listeners an idea, like if we have an acre of land, I mean, and we wanted to do, let's say, sheep, because you're talking about sheep. How much sheep could we manage on an acre of land? And what do you have to do to the land, if anything?
But I always encourage farmers with a home, 1 acre of land. If you want to keep sheep, fence the land. You don't have to. It don't have to be very expensive. You could plant munga, tricantera, gloricida. You plant them apart over a period of 2 years. Those would be solid posts, stick, and each of them could be used cut back as feed. And you could bar it with barbed wire, pan, wood, old galvanized, bamboo, particularly if you pour. And if you pour, you have time. That's the only reason you pour.
You
Most
have
poor
time.
people have plenty time.
Yeah.
That is the reason you poor. You have time. The woman have a man there, she don't have food, nothing, the man don't have nothing to do. Otherwise, he'd have gone on hunt. He'd have gone on fish. He have been working. So you encourage him, go and get bamboo. Buy around the land with wood, bamboo, whatever the case may be. I'm talking in a case where you don't even have money to buy wire. Because the post you planted was biological. You're making almost a biological fence, and then you're using waste material.
Yeah.
You may have 3 sheep on it, because you're using the sheep to keep down weeds.
Yeah.
And the manure, the waste from the sheep, you incorporate it back in the soil.
Yeah. So about how many could you hold on an acre in terms of sheep?
Well, not much, about 3 or 5.
That's all?
Yeah. And if you want a free range cow, you have to have 5 acres of land for 1 cow. Otherwise, you have to go in Guyana. It's cheaper for you to buy meat from Guyana.
Ah.
Greater eat out all the cow in St. Vincent. If they give us a chance. Once you free ranging, because that means that animal is let loose. Now, if you have the animal on a pole, 0 grazing, you cut grass, you cut material and bring. The animal take longer perhaps to mature because you're not getting enough food.
Right.
But remember, the animal you have free ranging, they have to use the food for muscle growth and long exercise. That is why you restrict a boiler to 1 square foot of space. But a layer, you give it 3 square foot of space because a layer have to live longer, so the muscles have to develop, so you need exercise. That is why when you have a fattener for a pig, all you want is to eat, sheep, sleep, eat, shit, get up. And within 6 months to 7 months, you want 150, 200 pounds of meat.
What livestock you like the best? You have a preference for? Just from your
Well, it all
knowledge.
depends on
No, from your perspective, as you know,
the one that
you're
can make the most money quickest.
you want the one that can make the most money
As
quickest
quick as possible.
and-
And least, and you are not that harassed from it.
Yeah.
If you have goats is a browser.
Uh-huh.
So goats tend to destroy the fields more. It's a browser. And we are not talking about where farmers have pen and feeding the animals in a pen because we don't have foraging material. We can't go and buy ruminant feed as how we buy poultry feed. Farmers don't do that yet.
Yeah.
So they depend a lot on foraging material, even if you use 10% of artificial food. So the farmers have to be clear in their mind. And at this stage, the Ministry of Agriculture, the researchers must be clear. So if you see farmers investing money in pig, sometimes you feel sorry for some farmers. They have some money, I don't know why they didn't do something else with it. Better you take a girl and go on the beach or some kind of thing. Because you're wasting the money. And they invest it and to come to naught. You go to financial institutions, the GDB Bank, the credit union. First of all, the other institution know you go fail. So you go have to put up a lot of collateral. You give them your land paper, your house paper, they take insurance, and they watch you and they say that farmer go fail. They know you will not make money from that. But the Grenada Development Bank, if it is serving its purpose, cannot leave the farmer in the rain. That is what they do. They give you money and they show you go fail.
Oh, gosh.
The credit unions, well, if 60% of first-time people who go for loans fail in 5 years.
Let me remind you of an example of GDB Bank and leaving the farmers without a roof over their head. The Grenada Poultry Association had over 340,000 in the bank. It was a grant given by one of those international agencies or countries. Now, when the approval was granted for a poultry farmer to access that money, it turned out the money never exists because the bank used it for themselves. They got into some serious problem and they used it for their wages and maintenance, etc. So this was something that I felt very strongly about in terms of the lack of ethical behavior by those operating the bank. You take other people's money and you use it to pay your wages. And when I questioned it, what I was told was that, well, the political leaders had approved it.
You see, one of the challenges we have is our farmers do not understand the power. And I always go and understand the consequences of it. The Nutmeg Association and the Cocoa Association supposed to be two of the most powerful farmers organization in the country. And if they were doing a good job, a lot of the things that are happening to farmers in other areas would not happen. But they believe they are political agents for a political party.
Oh dear.
That has always been so. They are the worst negotiators in the country. The trade union seeks more interests of its workers.
Okay.
Right? The Chamber of Commerce, that is the businessmen and them. But the farmers' organization have not lobbied on behalf of the farmers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges we have.
But
so the farmers have a history of believing that there is no help coming.
Yeah, but do we have a farmers association?
Yes, we have the Nutmeg Association, the Cocoa Association is two of the biggest farmers' body in the country. Now, if they was seriously seeking the interests of the farmer, and the fact that we have a farmers' representative in the Senate, that is 3 different parcels. But we don't have it. These people have to zero in, challenge the Ministry of Agriculture. Stop whooping around. We export nutmeg, cocoa, fish, saucer.
Yeah, but
small ruminant, a pound of mutton is about $15 to $20.
Yeah.
So there definitely is a case
for
to develop
small
ruminant. You're going to have farmers who have goat and sheep in the bush. They have them free ranging in the bush. That is manicu. If they get, they get.
Yeah.
Because they don't have it under any good management condition. And they have been very lucky. The biggest challenge is dog predation and predial larceny. If you meet 10 farmers, and I dare you to take me out, and you ask them how much dogs they have, I'm certain they have more than 10 dogs. So the majority of people who are affected by dog predation, they themselves have too much unruly dogs that are not taken care of. When you hear a dog is on heat, one female dog is on heat, sometimes you have 20 males behind. It's only 2 males or 3 that would suffer. But the others are wrong. And they will go around for days without eating. When she come out of heat, they might kill sheep. It's just as if you have a group of young men. I drawing a parallel now. You have a group of young men going on the road carnival time. They drink 2 rum. No girlfriend with them. If they see a girl with them, she's a little bandit too. They're going to fight. The fastest way sometimes to have men behave decent is to encourage them to shack up, get married, have a life, go to church. Otherwise, the wild instinct take over. The same thing with dogs. So
So the
these,
dogs must go to church?
well, the dogs are, if the female go to church, they're going in church too. The female go to church. So you see, one of the challenges, and it's a big challenge that everybody tried to deal with it. The only person that tried was Kenny Lalsin. The political repercussion was so harsh, nobody ever ventured again. Way back post 83, Kenny was suggesting to manage the amount of dogs we have. Nobody ever grumbled on that again because that is a lot of politics. Dog predation could be seriously reduced. The next thing is predial larceny. This big noise they're making about predial larceny is not so detrimental to agriculture. Number of farmers who disagree with me on that. But somewhere in 2018 and 19 or 17, I believe, the police said that predial larceny is only 3% of the crimes in our country. And a lot of the people involved in predial larceny are drug addicts. They are the ones going and taking. And they sell the meat to people who cook in meat. You notice I didn't say they sell it to a restaurant. I said the people who cook in meat. So these individuals, you have to have some way of rehabilitating them. And they could be rehabilitated. And farmers have to be encouraged to work together because some farmers know who robbing farmers. All this noise the ministry making there to solve predial larceny problem, that is only a show. They're not going to solve the problem with that. If they know it's a show, they have no intention to do that. We cannot trick ourselves. We have to zero in on the farmers and the small ruminant farmer, sheep and goat, rabbit farmers, even if you rearing a cow or cattle, and nothing is a good thing for somebody who work in the agriculture sector to have a cow. They pay you $60 a day, you work 2 hours, 3 hours, you have enough time to mind a cow. And every year perhaps you make a $2,000-3,000 additional Christmas time. You know, you could provide a additional income. But we have to zero in on the farmer. The young people we've seen should come in agriculture. We have to zero in. When I go in agriculture and I intend to spend $50,000 rather than buy a car, you don't want to lose it. You're going to lose the money you spend on the car in 4 years anyway.
So, livestock farming with the smaller animals sounds as though it makes good economic sense in terms of what you're saying, especially with the goats and the goat meat, because, you know, for the greater part of the year, there's no goat meat available.
We used to export about 300 to 400 animals every week to Trinidad, live animals. 300 to 400 a week. If you include Grenada and Carriacou together. And I'm being conservative. And there was an active trade until some of the farmers in Trinidad start complaining. And they said Grenada was bringing in diseases, and the procedure had to be to do the research to find out if we have the disease in truth. It's a good cheap strategy. But we have not seriously improved the small ruminant industry. Then you see government make a whole set of joke. You know, the government don't have no sense. Go and bring in 400 animals and no plan, didn't know what to do with it and etc. But they have not surgically dealt with the challenges that the small farmer face. And maybe the government would share this animal to give people two around. Well, they're going to eat it, they're going to kill some, and some people they're going to go in pot. And in the next few years, the same cycle continues. If you want to push small ruminant, you have to determine the man have a minimum amount of land. You say 1 acre of land you have, better you keep rabbits. Or better you just have 3 or 4 goats or sheep there, zero grazing, you know, etc. If you want somebody more serious, 10, 15 acres of land, a large 50 acres of land, they could have a nice, decent, economic livestock project. But you zero in, you let the farmer know. It don't make sense staying with 5. Better you rear 15 goats. So that you sell the young ones at 3 months or 4 months and you slaughter them. We cannot have a University of the West Indies here. We ought not to have all these individuals with this level of certification, and they cannot transport, they can practicalize this certificate. It must be seen on the ground. When you go on the ground, you are not seeing the technical expertise. You're not seeing the result. Remember, you have a caller a minute more.
1 minute.
Well, time flies. Joshua.
Yeah.
Particularly when you find out if things make economic sense.
Yeah.
Time flies, Joshua.
Well, livestock has that potential to make good economic sense, and you could start pretty small. And one of the things is the fencing that Mr. Pierre was talking about is actually a provider of the food as well. So, you don't have to have a big amount of money to lay out. You could start pretty small and grow bit by bit. So I think, it's a good supplement to an income if you're living in the rural community.
What we do on this program is to provoke discussion. We don't have answers, but we want farmers to discuss issues. We want the people who claim that they are the intellect. For a country to develop, you need these people, but they must be thinkers. We want the Grenada Development Bank. Stop raiding the bank. Zero in and help the farmers. The credit union. You all people have a lot of intelligent people there. Don't trick our people. If 60% of the people that take new projects, investment, fail in under 5 years, that ought to be of your concern. And we encourage you again to subscribe to Studio Galaxy 473. Like our program. Give us a blind. Promote us. Share us. And talk about us. Thank you very much.
And Studio Galaxy 473 in Conferro. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell. Beat your drum. Tell others. Like and share. Subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Conferro, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know.